My family took advantage of my high income while treating me like an ATM. When I cut them off, they threatened legal action. Ironically, contract law and financial transparency worked in my favor. You owe us this money. We raised you. We sacrificed everything for you. My mother's voice cracked on the phone, but there was steel underneath it. The kind of steel that had been sharpened over 32 years of guilt trips and manipulated obligations. I stared at the lawyer's retainer agreement on my desk, then at the 17-page spreadsheet I'd been maintaining for the past 3 years. Every dollar, every guilt trip, every emergency that somehow always landed in my lap. I don't owe you anything, I said quietly. The silence that followed felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. I'm 32, work in software engineering, and make around $340,000 a year between my salary and stock options. I'm single, no kids, and until 3 months ago, I was financially supporting 5 people who weren't me. That's when everything changed. How dare you? My mother finally said. After everything we've done for you. After all the years we supported you. I almost laughed. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Supported me? I've given you over $400,000 in the last 6 years. I have the receipts. Literally. That's family helping family. You make so much money. You don't even notice it. I noticed, Mom. I've been noticing for a very long time. She hung up. 2 hours later, my brother Andrew called. What the hell did you say to Mom? She's hysterical. Andrew is 28, lives in their basement, and hasn't held a job for more than 4 months since college. College that I paid for. I told her the truth. The truth? The truth is that you're being selfish. You have all this money, and you can't help your own family. I could hear my father in the background, saying something I couldn't make out. I've been helping for 6 years, Andrew. It's not helping anymore. It's enabling. Enabling? Jesus Christ, listen to yourself. You sound like some self-help podcast. I sound like someone who just realized I'm never going to retire because I keep funding everyone else's lifestyle. Our lifestyle? We're barely getting by. That was the line that made me laugh out loud. You bought a $60,000 truck last year, with money I gave you for medical expenses. That was different. I needed reliable transportation. You needed a brand new Ford F-350 with a lift kit? He didn't answer that. Look, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. No more cash transfers. No more loans that never get repaid. No more emergencies that I have to solve. You're making a huge mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. He hung up too. I sat in my apartment, my paid-off apartment that I'd bought in cash because I was terrified of debt, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. It lasted about 48 hours. That's when the lawyer's letter arrived. Not to my apartment. To my office. My assistant brought it to me with a confused expression. This just got delivered by courier. It's marked urgent. I opened it standing at my desk. The letterhead was from Hutchinson & Associates, a law firm I'd never heard of. The letter was 4 pages long. The summary was simple. My family was suing me for financial elder abuse and breach of oral contract. They were claiming that I had verbally agreed to support them indefinitely, and that cutting them off constituted abandonment and emotional distress. They were seeking $750,000 in damages. I read it twice. Then I called my friend Derek, who's a corporate attorney. Can they do this? I asked. Can they sue you? Anyone can sue anyone. Will they win? That's a different question. They're claiming I had an oral contract to support them. Did you? No. I mean, they guilted me into giving them money constantly, but there was never any formal agreement. Do you have documentation of the payments? Every single one. Derek was quiet for a moment. You need to come to my office. Bring everything you have. And I mean everything. I took the next day off work. It was the first sick day I'd taken in 2 years. I spent the morning printing out bank statements, transaction records, text messages, and emails. The pile of paper was 6 inches thick by the time I was done. I also printed out something else. Something I'd started doing about 3 years ago when I first realized how bad things had gotten. A detailed log. Every request for money, with date, time, person asking, reason given, and actual amount set. Every follow-up conversation. Every broken promise to pay me back. Every time someone said, "This is the last time," I swear. It was 47 pages long. Derek's office was in downtown Seattle, in one of those glass towers that make you feel poor just walking into the lobby. He met me in a conference room that had a view of Elliott Bay. Holy shit. he said when I dropped the stack of papers on the table. I told you I had documentation. He started going through it. I watched his expression change from casual interest to focused attention to something that looked like disbelief. Your mother asked you for $8,000 for a furnace emergency and then posted pictures of a vacation to Hawaii 2 weeks later? Yeah. Your brother borrowed $15,000 for business startup costs and bought a boat. A jet ski, actually. But yes. Your sister needed $12,000 for medical bills and got a nose job? That one was particularly frustrating. Derek leaned back in his chair. This isn't financial elder abuse. This is financial abuse the other direction. They've been systematically manipulating you. I know. No, I don't think you do. This is textbook exploitation. Emotional manipulation, guilt tactics, fraudulent misrepresentation of need. So what do? We counterclaim. We document everything. And we make it very clear that if they want to go to court, we'll be happy to show a judge exactly where all your money went. Will that work? It should. But you need to be prepared for this to get ugly. It got ugly fast. My mother called me 37 times in one day. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that ranged from tearful pleas to screaming accusations. My father sent me a text that said, "You were always ungrateful. We should have expected this." My sister Rachel posted on Facebook about how her selfish brother was abandoning the family in their time of need. The post got 63 likes and 42 comments, mostly from people who didn't know me. Several mutual friends called to ask what was going on. I didn't explain. Derek said not to engage on social media, not to respond to any family communication, and to document everything they did. Every threat, every manipulation attempt, every public statement. It all helps your case. The next week, they escalated. My cousin Melissa showed up at my apartment building. The front desk called me to say I had a visitor. Tell her I'm not available. She says it's a family emergency. It's not. Please ask her to leave. 10 minutes later, Melissa called my cell. You're really not going to talk to me? After everything our family has been through together. Melissa, I'm not discussing this. Your mother is devastated. She's not sleeping. She's not eating. The stress is making her sick. Then she should drop the lawsuit. She wouldn't have to sue you if you just do the right thing. The right thing is not bankrupting myself to fund other people's choices. God, you've changed. Money has changed you. That one stung, even though I knew it was manipulation. I haven't changed. My bank account has just stopped being everyone else's emergency fund. You know what? I hope you enjoy being alone, because that's where this is headed. She hung up. I stood in my apartment, looking out at the Seattle skyline, and I wondered if she was right. Was I going to end up alone because I finally set boundaries? My phone buzzed. It was Derek. Their lawyer just sent over a discovery request. They want access to your financial records. All of them. All of them. They're trying to prove you can afford to support them. What do? We comply, but we also send our own discovery request. We want their financial records too. Will they agree to that? They'll have to if they want yours. 3 days later, Derek called me with an update. They're trying to back out of discovery. Their lawyer says it's unnecessarily invasive. But they want my records. Exactly. I told them it's both ways or no ways. They're discussing it. What do you think they'll do? Honestly, I think they'll drop the suit. Once they realize we're going to expose every dollar they've received and every lie they've told about why they needed it, this becomes a very different case. And if they don't drop it, then we go to court, and I show a judge your spreadsheet. I wanted to believe it would be that simple. It wasn't. The next development came from an unexpected direction. My Uncle Peter called. Uncle Peter was my father's brother, someone I'd always respected. He was a retired teacher, lived modestly, and had never asked me for anything. I need to talk to you, he said. In person. About the lawsuit. About your family. Please. We met at a coffee shop in Fremont. He looked older than I remembered. I'm not here to take sides, he said. But I think you need to know some things. Okay. Your father borrowed $50,000 from me 8 years ago. Said it was for medical expenses. I just found out he used it to buy a vintage car. I stared at him. He never paid you back? Never even acknowledged the debt. When I brought it up last year, he said it was a gift. Uncle Peter, I'm sorry. That's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you because this is a pattern. Your grandmother, before she passed, was constantly bailing them out. Your mother's sister stopped talking to them 15 years ago over money they borrowed and never repaid. I didn't know any of this. They don't advertise it. But I've watched them do this to everyone who cares about them. And when someone finally says no, they get attacked. So what should I do? Stand your ground. Because if you give in now, this will never stop. It'll be like this for the rest of your life. He paid for the coffee and left. I sat there for an hour, thinking about what he'd said, thinking about the pattern, thinking about how I'd somehow believed I was different, that my situation was unique. That night, I got an email from my sister. The subject line was, "Please read this." I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. The email was long. She started with an apology, which surprised me. "I know I've been unfair to you. I know I've asked for too much, but I want you to understand where mom and dad are coming from." Then she launched into a story about their childhood, about how poor they'd been, about how hard they'd worked, about how they'd sacrificed to raise us. It was a good story. It was also mostly bullshit. Not the poverty part. That was real. But the sacrifice narrative was exaggerated beyond recognition. My parents weren't martyrs who'd given up everything. They were people who'd made choices, same as everyone else. And somewhere along the way, they'd decided that their children owed them a debt that could never be repaid. I wrote back, "I understand things were hard, but that doesn't create a lifetime obligation. I've helped for years. I'm done now. If you want a relationship with me, it needs to be one that's not based on money." She didn't respond. 2 weeks later, Derek called with news. "They're dropping the lawsuit." I felt my shoulders relax for the first time in a month. Why? Our discovery counterclaims scared them. Their lawyer advised them that going forward would expose them to serious scrutiny and potentially to counterclaims of fraud and financial manipulation. So it's over? The legal part is. The family part, that's up to you. I knew what he meant. The question wasn't whether I'd won. The question was what I'd won. That weekend, I drove to my parents' house. I hadn't been there in 2 months. My mother answered the door. She looked tired. "I didn't expect to see you. Can I come in?" She stepped aside. My father was in the living room, watching television. He didn't look at me when I entered. I sat down across from them. "I want to explain something," I said. "You don't need to explain being selfish," my father said. "Dad, please. Just listen." He didn't respond, but he didn't leave. "I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this because I need to have my own life. I need to be able to save for my future, to have financial security, to not live in constant stress about money." "You make plenty of money," my mother said. "I do. But that doesn't mean I have to give it all away. That doesn't mean I don't get to have boundaries." "Boundaries?" my father spat. "That's what you call abandoning your family. I call it being an adult with his own life. I call it not wanting to be 60 years old with no retirement savings because I spent everything on everyone else." "We would never let you end up with nothing," my mother said. The sincerity in her voice almost made me laugh. "Mom, you sued me for $750,000. How is that not trying to take everything?" "That was different. That was about principle." "What principle?" "The principle that I owe you infinite financial support." Neither of them answered. "I kept records," I said quietly, "of everything. Every dollar, every request, every reason you gave me. Do you want to know how much I've given you in the last 6 years?" "We don't need to discuss numbers," my father said. $427,000. That's what I've given you. And Andrew. And Rachel. $427,000 in 6 years. My mother's face went pale. "That can't be right." "It is. I have the spreadsheet. I can show you every transaction." "But we needed all of that," she said. "Did you?" "Because I also have records of what you told me the money was for versus what you actually spent it on." My father stood up. "I think you should leave. I'm not trying to hurt you with this. I'm trying to show you why I can't keep doing it. That money represents years of my life. Years of work. Years of stress. And it's gone. All of it. You have more," my mother said. And there it was. The core belief that would never change. As long as I had money, they would believe they had a right to it. "I do have more," I said. "And I'm keeping it. For me. For my future. For the life I want to build." I stood up. "If you want to have a relationship with me, I'm open to that. But it needs to be a relationship that's not about money. No more loans. No more emergencies. No more guilt trips." "And if we can't accept that," my father asked, "then I guess we don't have a relationship." I walked to the door. My mother called after me. "You'll regret this. When you're old and alone, you'll wish you'd valued family more than money." I turned back. "I value family. That's why I gave you $427,000. But I also value myself. And that's something I'm not willing to negotiate anymore." I left. The drive home felt longer than it should have. I kept waiting to feel guilty. The guilt didn't come. Instead, I felt something else. Something that took me a few miles to identify. Peace. The next few months were quiet. No calls from my parents. No emergency texts from my siblings. No Facebook posts about my selfishness. Just silence. I threw myself into work. I got a promotion. I started saving aggressively for retirement. I took a vacation to Japan, something I'd wanted to do for years but never felt like I could afford. I went on dates. I made new friends. I started to build a life that was mine. 6 months after the lawsuit got dropped, I got a text from Andrew. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time before responding. About what? About everything. About how things went down. Okay, coffee. We met at the same place I'd met Uncle Peter. Andrew looked different. Thinner. Older. Less confident. I got a job, he said. Construction. It's hard work, but I'm learning a lot. That's good. I wanted to apologize. For how I acted. For the things I said. I didn't know what to say. I've been thinking a lot, he continued. About how we treated you. About how we all just expected you to take care of everything. Yeah. It wasn't fair. I see that now. What changed? I had to start paying for my own stuff. My own truck payment. My own phone. My own everything. And I realized how much pressure that is. How hard it is to make ends meet. Welcome to adulthood. He laughed, but it was a bitter sound. I guess I had a prolonged childhood. Courtesy of you. I wasn't trying to keep you from growing up. I know, but that's what happened anyway. We sat in silence for a minute. Mom and Dad are struggling, he said. Without your money, they're having to make real choices. Cut real expenses. How are they doing? They're angry. At you, at the situation, at themselves probably. Dad had to sell the vintage car. Mom had to get a part-time job. She hadn't been working? Not for years. She said she was too stressed. I didn't comment on that. Rachel moved in with them. She couldn't afford her apartment anymore. How's she doing? Bitter. She's not speaking to you. I figured. Look, I'm not here to guilt you or to ask for anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And I wanted you to know that at least one person in this family understands why you did what you did. Thank you. Are you happy? He asked. The question surprised me. Yeah, I think I am. Good. That's good. He left after that. I sat there thinking about happiness. About how for years, I'd equated being a good person with being useful to others. With being needed. With being the solution to everyone else's problems. And how exhausting that had been. How suffocating. A year after the lawsuit, I ran into my Uncle Peter at a grocery store. How are you doing? He asked. Good. Really good, actually. I heard about Andrew. That he's working. Yeah, we've been talking a little. Nothing deep, but it's something. And your parents? No contact. I think that's how it's going to stay. I'm sorry about that. Don't be. I'm not. He smiled. You know what? I believe you. That night, I updated my spreadsheet one final time. Not to add new payments. To calculate how much I'd saved since cutting them off. In 12 months, I'd saved $94,000. Nearly $100,000 that would have disappeared into the void of family obligations. Instead, it was sitting in my retirement account, growing. Instead, it was mine. I thought about my mother's last words to me. About being old and alone. About regretting valuing money over family. But here's the thing she never understood. I didn't value money over family. I valued myself over being used. There's a difference. 2 years after everything happened, I bought a house. Not a mansion. Not something ostentatious. Just a nice 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood. With a yard. And a garage. And space to finally have the life I'd been postponing. The day I got the keys, I stood in the empty living room and I cried. Not from sadness. From relief. From the realization that I'd actually done it. I'd broken free. I still think about them sometimes. About whether I made the right choice. About whether I was too harsh. But then I look at my bank account. At my retirement projections. At the life I'm building. And I know I made the only choice I could live with. The choice to stop lighting myself on fire to keep other people warm. My phone rings sometimes, and I see my mother's name. I don't answer. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday they'll be ready to have a relationship that's not transactional. But I'm not holding my breath. And I'm okay with that. Because for the first time in my adult life, I'm not drowning in other people's problems. I'm not sacrificing my future for someone else's present. I'm not carrying the weight of an entire family's financial irresponsibility on my shoulders. I'm just living my life on my terms. And if that makes me selfish, then I guess I'm selfish. But I'm also solvent and stable. And finally, after 32 years, free. The legal threats never came back. The guilt trips still echo sometimes in my head, in that voice that sounds like my mother. But they're quieter now, easier to dismiss. I've started dating someone. Her name is Victoria. She's a teacher, makes maybe 1/10 of what I make, and has never once asked me for money. When I told her about my family situation, she just nodded. That must have been really hard. It was. Are you okay now? Yeah, I think I am. Good. That was it. No judgment. No pressure. No expectation that I owe anyone anything. Just acceptance. It's the healthiest relationship I've ever had. Last month, I got a letter in the mail. From my sister. I almost threw it away. But I opened it. It was short. I'm in therapy. Working through a lot of stuff. About money. About family. About my own responsibilities. I'm not ready to talk yet. But I wanted you to know I'm trying. And I'm starting to understand. Rachel. I put the letter in a drawer. Maybe someday we'll reconnect. Maybe not. Either way, I'm okay. I've learned something these past 2 years. You can't save people who don't want to be saved. You can't fill a hole that has no bottom. And you can't sacrifice yourself forever in the name of obligation. At some point, you have to choose yourself. Even if it costs you everything else. Even if people call you selfish. Even if you end up standing alone. Because standing alone with dignity is better than standing in a crowd while being devoured. My therapist asked me once if I regretted how things turned out. I thought about it for a long time. No, I finally said. Not even a little. I regret that it had to happen this way. I regret that they couldn't see what they were doing. But I don't regret protecting myself. That's healthy. It doesn't always feel healthy. Sometimes it feels lonely. Healthy and lonely aren't mutually exclusive. She was right. I think about the $427,000 sometimes. About what I could have done with that money. About the house I could have bought years ago. About the financial security I could have had. But I also think about what I learned. About boundaries. About self-worth. About the difference between helping and enabling. About the cost of being needed. And I realized that maybe the $427,000 was the price of my education. Expensive as hell, but worth it in the end. Because now I know. I know what I'm willing to accept. I know what I'm not. And I know that no amount of guilt or obligation or family pressure is worth losing myself. 3 years after everything fell apart, I'm sitting in my house. My house, that I bought with my money, that no one can take from me. The mortgage is manageable. My retirement accounts are healthy. My emergency fund is fully stocked. I'm dating someone who values me for me, not for what I can provide. I have friends who've never asked me for a dime. I have a life that's mine. And somewhere across town, my family is living their lives without my money. I don't know if they're struggling. I don't know if they've figured it out. I don't know if they think about me. And for the first time in years, I'm okay with not knowing. Because their problems aren't my problems anymore. Their emergencies aren't my emergencies. Their choices aren't my responsibility. I'm just a guy who worked hard, made good money, and finally learned to say no. That's it. That's the whole story. And if that makes me the villain in their narrative, I can live with that. Because in my narrative, I'm the hero. The one who escaped. The one who survived. The one who finally chose himself. And that's enough.